Russia is one of the biggest and most powerful nations on planet Earth. Often people forget its huge power and influence over the course of history. But what if Russia never became a country in the first place? How would the world be different today? That's what we are going to talk about right now on Life's Biggest Questions. Hello and welcome back to Life's Biggest Questions, the channel that challenges reality. I'm your host, Charlotte Dobray, and if you love history questions, show us some love by leaving a like on this video. If this is your first time here, subscribe to Life's Biggest Questions for more of life's biggest answers, and ask us a question in the comments below. First things first, Russia is huge. It's the biggest country on planet Earth, and it takes up roughly 11% of the entire world's landmass. If it had never existed, we can assume that it was simply split up into individual, sovereign Slavic states. Slavic people would still have existed if Russia never did. In terms of the course of history, so much would have been different. Basically from the point that Ivan the Terrible was in power up until the 20th century. Ivan the Terrible, or Ivan the Fearsome, was the Grand Prince of Moscow from 1533 to 1547. Then he became the Tsar of all Rus, until he died in 1584. Ivan the Terrible was responsible for transforming Russia into an empire. Russia was the major reason why the Turks did not expand into Eastern Europe. The Russo-Turkish Wars took place between the 16th to 20th centuries. Russia forced the Ottomans back into Asia. Without Russia's interference, it's likely that the Turks would have settled in Eastern Europe and many modern-day Europeans would be Muslim. Russia also kept the Chinese Empire in China. It prevented Chinese influence and power from penetrating its borders. If Russia never existed, without question, China would have expanded into that land. Mao also came into power in China in 1940 because he received a lot of aid from the Soviets. The history of all other communist nations who had help from Russia would be drastically different as well. Places like Cuba, North Korea, Venezuela, and Vietnam. Let's look at the Napoleonic invasion of Russia. It's a well-known fact that the great conqueror Napoleon was outsmarted by the brutality of the Russian army during the Patriotic War of 1812. The Grand Army was the largest army to ever have been assembled up until that point, but the Russian army's tactics left them bloody and weak. The Russian campaign was a major turning point for the Napoleonic Wars. Afterward, Napoleon's reputation was ruined. Perhaps Napoleon would have ended up conquering the territory taken up by Russia and expanded French territory. Without Russia, Napoleon could have had a fighting shot at his plans for world domination. At the very least, much more of Eastern Europe would have been influenced by the French. And let's not forget the World Wars. Both World Wars would have turned out drastically different without Russia. The Soviet Union's role in the First World War was pivotal. Without Russia, it's likely the First World War would have ended in a negotiated peace. Russia's role in the Second World War was more vital than the role of the United States, contrary to popular belief. It is arguable that Stalin helped save the entire world from Hitler, but not without substantial sacrifice. For every one American soldier that was killed in World War II by the Germans, there were 80 Soviets killed. But the Soviets were also responsible for rolling back the Nazi advance. 3/4 of the German soldiers that died during World War I died at the hands of the Soviets in battles like the Siege of Stalingrad. Say what you want about communism, without the Soviet Union and Stalin as its ruthless leader, it's likely that Germany could have expanded into that territory, conquering a large part of the world. There would still be Slavic people living in that area, and it's a well-known fact that Adolf Hitler hated Slavs almost as much as he hated Jews. Russia would have turned into one giant concentration camp. Then again, without Russia, there might not even have been a Hitler, or at least he wouldn't have risen to power. Let's not forget about the influence of communism. It's quite probable that communism wouldn't have been as influential without Russian thinkers like Stalin and Lenin. Without Lenin, there might not have even been a Hitler. Let me explain. Hitler's rise to power was largely to do with the fact that conservative elites were fearing a Bolshevik revolution on German soil. Hitler's supporters believed he and he alone had the power to prevent a Leninist revolution. Without Lenin and the Bolsheviks, Hitler wouldn't have had a scapegoat for his anti-Slavic, anti-Semitic plan. On that note, without Russia, there would be no Russian Revolution. The Bolsheviks were responsible for creating the world's first police state. Communism also dominates China, another one of the world's current most powerful nations. This is just a few of the ways history would have been different if Russia never existed. Obviously, Russia's influence on the world cannot be contained in one 5-minute video. Would you like to see a part 2? Let me know in those comments. For now, I'm Charlotte Dobray, and you've been watching Life's Biggest Questions. If you enjoyed this video, you will love our playlist, Biggest History Questions, clickable on the screen right now. And don't forget to turn on notifications by clicking the bell icon. We will see you in a future episode of Life's Biggest Questions.